Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Happy May 20th. I don't think it's I mean, if it's your birthday, happy birthday, but I don't know of any other great things about May 20th. If you do, drop them in the chat because that would be cool. I'm sure it's a national something day. Every day is a national something day. But if it's not National Pizza or National Donut, then, it's lower on my list of worries. Um, Today we're gonna do as the slide here in front of you suggests, we're going to do an interactive formative assessment roundup. So throughout this year, if you've been coming to these lunch and learns, you've had an opportunity to see a variety of interactive formative assessment tools being demonstrated and talked about and all that stuff. But perhaps you missed some, or you weren't able to make it to all of them, or what have you. So I am not going to attempt to do 5 or 6 full presentations worth of interactive learning tools in an hour. That would be bonkers, and I don't think anybody would get a lot out of that. So we're going to talk about some of them. I'm going to demonstrate a few of them. I'm going to have links at the end for you to be able to get to them. And then, of course, there will also be a link to our Lunch and Learn website where there are recordings of these presentations. So you'll be able to find that information very, very easily. So that's sort of our roadmap for today. If you as we go through and talk about each tool, I'll ask if anybody in the audience today has any experience using that particular tool and any sort of like, you know, epiphany moments you might have had while using it, or suggestions you would give to those of us who haven't used it yet. But with that, let's go ahead and jump in, and we're going to get right into the icebreaker. So icebreaker is just very, very quick. I've dropped a link to it right there in the Zoom chat. And this is sort of a multi-purpose thing, right? It is an icebreaker, but it is also demonstrating one of the tools that we talked about this year, which is Padlet. So hopefully you are able to jump in there and see the Padlet, and you would be able to click on the plus sign in the bottom right and add your answer to the prompt, which is, summer is almost here. Whether you're 10-month, 11-month, 12-month, 13-month, I don't know, if you're 13-month, welcome to the club. And so but hopefully there's one thing at least that you're looking forward to this summer. And I'd love for you to share what that is. While you're typing, I'll just tell you mine. My sister is getting married this summer. She's 3 years younger than I am. I've known her my whole life. I wasn't sure this was going to happen. The man that she's marrying is really, really great. And so I'm so excited about that. But I'm also on the professional side. I'm going to be spending my summer digging deeper into learning how to better use AI tools for my everyday life, work, job. I have people who work outside of education that are friends of mine. They use it all the time for all kinds of things, and they're telling me all about it. And so I'm trying to have a better handle on what that means for me as a professional. So you have a chance to drop your ideas in there. Nice. Ben spending time with kids. That's a good plan. Okay, honeydew list. I can respect that. Oh, there you go. Oh, you have summertime competition. Nice. Darlene, I know you got in here late. We're just filling in an icebreaker Padlet. I don't know if you saw the link or not, but I'm going to re-drop it in there.
Sorry, we just finished our graduation practice, and I was like, "Oh, I can actually join." Just late and wrong.
Yeah, relaxing more, sleeping. Deirdre, amen to sleeping. My team will tell you all the time. they're like, hey, do you guys want to do this thing or do you want to skip it? I'm like, well, a nap sounds really good. I'm definitely looking forward to beach time and lots of fun in the sun. I tell you, today outside is already beautiful. I know it's not super warm, but man, it is absolutely gorgeous outside. Tomorrow sounds like it will not be. So I would say if you want to get out and enjoy the sun, let's do it. We'll wait. Charlene, we're just gonna wait on you and then we're gonna move on. So you but let's Oh, Jamaica trip the week before we. Oh my gosh, Charlene, you're not gonna want to come back.
Listen, last year we went on a cruise, so we were in the Dominican and Puerto Rico and stuff. It's actually really nice to like take that vacation when summer
Yep.
classes end.
Okay,
And
that's true.
then,
That's
yeah,
right.
see?
Yep. Yep. I got you. Nice camping trips. Awesome. All right. Well, so this is Padlet. So, we'll get to that in a second, but what are interactive formative assessments? They can be used in a variety of ways. Obviously, Padlet you can use for all different things, but the idea is that they're a low stakes way to assess student understanding before a summative assessment, right? So those summative assessments, those high weighted, big idea, bringing together lots of concepts, right? When we're talking about interactive formative assessments, it's like, okay, how do we build our students' confidence, right, in their understanding before we put them in that quote unquote high stakes situation, right? Because what we don't want to have is for students going into a summative assessment being unsure whether or not they know what they need to know. And so that's really what these formative assessments are trying to target. They're trying to get at this concept of students building the student confidence and your confidence to a certain degree as an instructor, right? Like you can look at these formative assessments and be like, hey, my students are really getting this, or my students are not really getting this. And this is a big part of this summative experience that they're about to go into. So I need to shift gears a little bit and try to see what I can do to help bring their understanding up to the level where it needs to be. So formative assessments are really just designed to make everyone more successful. And an interactive formative assessment just helps keep it from being sort of the ho hum humdrum sort of like, sit down and fill out the worksheet and hand it in and that kind of stuff, right? Like the idea here is we want to keep the students engaged, help them make new connections, help them be able to associate their knowledge with an experience, right? A student might not necessarily do a great job associating their knowledge with sitting there and filling out the worksheet for the 50,000th time in their life. But if they have an experience where you did a silly Slido or something crazy in a Zoom whiteboard, like that's going to trigger a memory for them. And then that's going to help them link that memory to the knowledge. And then you're going to be able to start building from there. And they're going to have an easier time doing that recall. So that's sort of the goal behind a lot of these things that we're going to be talking about today. So what tools did we cover throughout the year? So we did Zoom, and we could talk about Zoom whiteboards and Zoom polling, and there's reactions, right? Zoom is a multifaceted sort of interactive formative assessment tool. Then Jason took us through Hyperskill. So Hyperskill is a 3D simulation modeling software that doesn't require any coding. So that doesn't mean that it's like super easy and you can just whip one up in 5 minutes. Obviously, there's going to be some prep work involved with that, but that's another super cool tool that we'll talk about. Then we did Padlet, we did Mentimeter, we did EdPuzzle, and we did Slido. So we talked about all of these things, like I said, in detail. At the end, there will be a Linktree link, which will it'll just take you to my Linktree, and that has a link for Lunch and Learn, and it has a link to all these different tools and some articles from Zoom on how to use these things. So again, we're not going to get into the nitty gritty of all of them, but this is sort of the review of where we're going. So we started with Padlet. And like I said, Padlet is great. We can do it for exit tickets, reflections, anonymous idea sharing. You can do it for discussion boards. It's really just a very nice, versatile tool. You could set it up ahead of time, have some questions there, and then students can just drop in. It's nice to be able to add in some images along with the text responses. And so that's just a really fun way, right? Pure feedback. So you can start like again, like a discussion board, you can post and then you can allow the responses and do all that stuff, right? And the little tip here is that with a Padlet, because it's sort of you set it up and then it exists outside of that space and time, it's not a bad tool for an asynchronous environment, right? You can set it up and students can come in and out as they have time. And so you can use it in a synchronous way, like we did with our little what do you want to do this summer? And then you can use it in an asynchronous format over the course of a week or even a couple weeks or longer. Again, you might need to refer students back to it, but it's one of those things that you could build sort of like if you were gonna do now I'm forgetting the tool that Pinterest. Like you can build a Pinterest board over time and sort of follow your ideas, or that sort of like old kind of concept of building those boards. A Padlet can work like that for your courses. All right, Mentimeter, right? Crowd-powered check-in. So Mentimeter is, again, one of these tools, very, very powerful. It can be used for polling, but it can be used for information delivery. It can help you generate word clouds. It's absolutely, it's got plugins that can be used with other software pieces. So if you haven't checked out Mentimeter, again, there's a link for it at the end. It's one of those tools. There's a lot there. That's why we're not going to spend a whole lot of time diving into it, but the presentation does dive into it that is linked on the Lunch and Learn website. There's great resources in there for what to do with it. But that's one of those tools where if you're looking to just kind of make everything in your course, maybe just level it up, right? Mentimeter is not a bad place to sort of start, take a look, play around, see what sort of information and things you can find in there. And so that's just a little bit about how Mentimeter works. Again, it's got quizzing too, and then those live results, right? Anytime that you can, again, be inside of a situation where you're taking a poll and you're getting stuff live, that can be really helpful for students and for you because you can just be like, oh, misunderstanding, see it right here, let's address it before it ends up snowballing and causing issues further down the line. Slido, and this is the next one that we're going to try out. So the next slide will have a link for you to be able to use, or a QR code if you'd rather pull it up on your phone. So you can kind of like have slides up ahead of time. You can do some quick polling features. It's very, very easy to build. It's another one of those tools that you can use in class or through Zoom or however you like to do your polling. And so again, one of the things about polling, and mention it specifically here with Slido, sometimes students, if they know they're going to be identified by giving a response to a question, are less likely to give a response to a question, right? Students live in fear of being wrong. I, to a certain degree, live in fear of being wrong, right? Like if I'm not going to be participating in an activity or a poll, it's probably because I don't want to be the only one potentially who doesn't know the thing, right? And so when you can add this anonymity into this situation, it's almost like allowing students to keep their camera off, except you can still make sure that everyone participated because there's a total count, right? Like with the camera off, you're not sure if they're there or not there. But even with an anonymous result, you could say, well, I have 20 people here and I only have 15 responses. So let's get in there, guys, and let's get some responses. You can really drive home that sort of engagement piece so that they are engaging without that fear associated with the engagement. So here's the Slido. So you can go ahead and go to that link. And then I am going to launch the first little task, if you will. So question is, is this your first time using Slido? Again, anytime you're doing a poll, like in your class, it's great to ask a question that you can't get wrong. right? And that just builds confidence, right? There is not a like, oh my gosh, yes, no, or I guess I could have added, I don't remember. Because if you're like me, it's possible you're like, I don't know, maybe I've been to conferences, maybe it was there. I don't know, right? But generally speaking, it's nice to have one that's like, hey, you can't get this wrong. I see there's only 3 people voting. I know we have more than 3 people here. Come on. Yes, all yeses. Everyone's first time. I'd vote yes too. No, I'm just kidding. That would be bad. But okay, cool. Now, next one we're gonna go. All right. Have you used any polling solutions in your courses before? Awesome. Yes, across the board. All right. And so then the next question is an open-ended question. What I'd like for you to do is maybe list like one of the polling solutions that you've used in addition to answering the question. So question is, what do you think are the advantages of using a polling software during a course? And again, if you could just like give the solution you used and then what you think an advantage is of using that, that would be fantastic. And just so you all know, on the other side of this, right, I have my account pulled open so that I can be activating these questions as we're going. And I can actually see when people are typing. So as an instructor, up at the top of this question, I have a little like how many people are typing. Notice kind of like when you're in Teams, right? I don't know how many of you like look at your Teams and if you see somebody over on the left-hand side and you can tell that they're typing to you, sometimes I will go into Teams and I'll be like, hey, what do you want? Why are you typing? What's the problem? Just to be a little annoying. But also like people, it gives you a laugh. Sometimes it's good. So yeah, so if I just like, I'll show you guys here my screen, what it looks like on the account side of this, right? So if anyone's typing, it'll show up here for how many people are typing. And then when I need to launch any of these questions, I just hit the little play button on the question. And it launches that question into the link that I sent to you. So what's nice is that it doesn't matter what order you take them in. So you could have questions built ahead of time. And this is what's super great about like this kind of solution is you could have questions that are built that are different that you'll use depending on the answers that you get, right? So you could have a question that's like yes or no, right? And you could say it would be a different follow-up question based on whether or not you had a majority yes or a majority no. And you could just have that over here on the left and then just click play for the one that you want. And that's the next one that would show up. So for students, it looks like this seamless, like, oh, hey, yeah, like it's just responsive and it just knows what it's doing. When in reality, you're awesome and you prepared ahead of time and you had this ready to go. So, and you can tell them that. I constantly tell my kids when they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't like, they ask me a question and I answer it. They're like, oh, wow, I didn't think you would know that. It's like, how am I supposed to take that?
Adrian,
Is that a
is this
good?
something that you have
Bad?
to have all of them? Like, do you have to have all the questions pre-done, or can you add one like now? If you
I
just-
could literally add one right now.
Okay,
Like I could
cool,
just hit
cool.
this add button. I could just
Cool.
I could do multiple choice. Oh, you could create 3 polls per event. So that's the thing though. For a free one, we have 3 questions is the limited. Okay. So with what it used to be, like Zoom used to be more difficult to do polls ahead of time. So Zoom is, I think, the one that we're about to jump into next. Look at that. All right, I remembered my own presentation. And so with Zoom polling, I'm going to drag my little share bar. Can everybody see my share bar, my Zoom share bar now on the screen? No? Okay. When Zoom updated, it took that away. All right, hold on 1 minute. Share screen. Boom. Okay. Now can you see my Zoom share bar? Not yet? Okay, let's stop share and restart share. Let's see if that does it. Zoom share bar or no? It must only take after my next meeting. Okay, so if you wanted to create a poll, you can literally just open up the polling window and do it on the fly. You don't have to have them created ahead of time anymore, which is super great. It used to be that all of your Zoom polls, you'd have to go in, build them all ahead of time, hope you didn't make a mistake, and then when you're in your Zoom, you launch it. But now it doesn't, like, you don't have to take it back, like you don't have to go back outside into a browser window to create a new poll. So I can just create like a, so I'm just going to create a poll real quick. And then I can launch this poll. Boom. All right, so you guys should get the poll. Now we're gonna get, now we're gonna learn something about people. We're gonna learn who's a Mario person and who's a Luigi person. The real questions. Everybody's saying Mario. All right, listen. Whether you're right or wrong, Luigi can jump higher, okay? That's all I'm saying. All right, we're gonna move on. So it's that easy to create a Zoom poll, right? Again, they're great. You can just like pop that in mid using Zoom, right? Again, because it's so easy to create a question now, like you can have a student ask a question and you're like, okay, that's a really good question. What does everybody think about that? Type it in, boom, go, and launch that poll right then and there. The other thing that I like about, like, it's not Zoom polling, but there are reactions. And so if you go down to the bottom of your Zoom window, hopefully you're in the desktop version, but you should see a react down there at the bottom of your Zoom window, and there's all kinds of reactions. And so like if I wanted to say, okay, check or X, who's comfortable with Zoom polling? Check if you are, X if you aren't. And look, you guys are using thumbs. You aren't even listening. You're like all your students. I'm telling you. So yeah, so this is great. And then if you have your participant window open, it'll show you how many yeses and how many nos. So you can see if you have 25 students in your class or more, it can be really difficult to try to determine how many checks and how many X's exist. But if you have the participants window open, at the bottom of that window, it tells you how many checks and how many X's, right? And so you can very, very quickly, and then there's actually an option inside the participants window, clear all feedback. You see everybody's screens now are clear, all the check marks are gone. So before you start your next sort of like very quick check-in, you can clear everything and make sure that that's good to go. But that's a poll, technically, but it's even faster, right? You ask the question, you get a quick reaction with your reactions, you can get that immediate feedback from your students, get a sense of where things are, and then move on, right? And if you're lucky enough to be in a classroom that has, computers as well. If you're teaching high flex, then you can do a poll and everyone in the classroom can poll at the computer at their location. And if obviously they're joining in synchronously but remote, they can jump into that poll as well. So great, very, very quick. Zoom whiteboard. All right. So I'm going to do this. Listen, if you're the problem child and make it so that we can't have nice Zoom whiteboards anymore, okay? Just know that I love you very much because you're exactly what I would do. All right, so let's get this whiteboard up and going. All right, does everybody see the whiteboard? Okay, so this is the other thing great about a whiteboard. You can do collaborative, like group work and planning and things like that right here on this whiteboard, and it gets saved on your Zoom account. So you can have students add things, you can do concept maps, all kinds of possibilities exist within the, thank you very much, whoever said hi, I appreciate you. And the smiley face, absolutely. So this, again, you have to know your students a little bit, right? This is definitely one of those like, okay, everybody, we're going to be grown-ups now. Unless you're with a group of colleagues and you're like, okay, everybody, nobody's going to be grown-ups now. But you have to know who it is that's doing the whiteboard and understand the purpose. So you as the instructor, you set the tone for how a whiteboard's used. You decide what the purposes are. And what's great, again, is that these are saved, and then you can download it as a PDF and send it out to your students so you don't lose it, right? A lot of times when you're doing collaborative work, even in a classroom situation, right, you'd have to like pull out your phone. Okay, take out your phone, take a picture so we don't lose it, and then, you know, hope that you remember to do that. Here, you've got this whiteboard, it gets saved, and so you have a history, and you can kind of look back and say, oh, this is interesting. If you're somebody who uses this for like a lecture portion maybe of your Zoom, then you can have a whiteboard made, and then you could save anything that you've added to it. And now that's a dynamic thing for what happened in that class that students can now, you can send out to students as a note guide. Be like, hey, here's what we did in class today through the whiteboard. Check it out, hold on to it, use it to help you study, right? And so you can use this whiteboard just any way that you want. There's shapes that you can do. You can have different templates. So for instance, let's
Adrian, as an
yeah.
instructor with this, can you like pause everybody from writing on it except for you?
So
Because I mean, I
you
use Smart Notebook a lot, like with my stuff, but it would be nice if I could
right.
get students to also write when I would like them to versus not.
Yeah, so I believe so. I just have to find where the little lockdown is, which I'll find that for you, Sherlyn, because I just don't remember off the top of my head where it is. But I think there is a way to be like, okay, we're not like not right now. All right. Yeah, I'll find that and I'll post the link to that in my link tree at the end. That way, if you have the link tree link, that will be updated with a link to that information. So, yeah, it's Tuesday. Maybe we use the Taco Tuesday template for today, right? So whatever template you need, however it works, you can zoom in and out very easily. So you can add more, right? That's what's great about this. You can't really zoom in and out on a physical whiteboard, but you can zoom in and out here. So that makes it really, really fun and interactive. All right. Next, let me bring this share back up here.
Adrian, so to use this, that Zoom whiteboard in an live class, standard classroom, and majority don't have laptops, and there aren't computers there, then they would have to get in on their smartphone basically to use that, right?
Yeah, so if you were doing, yes, if you wanted students to be able to add to the whiteboard, then yes, inside of a class environment, then yes, you would use, like, they could use their phones or their laptops or whatever device they have to be able to access that.
Yeah, but there's probably a better app to use in that situation.
Yes, oh,
than the
absolutely,
default.
100%. Yep, yeah, the Zoom white, again, because if you're just in a face-to-face environment only, then the odds of you having Zoom open anyway are pretty small. So Zoom Whiteboard is definitely for, our synchronous distance classes or our high flex courses, where you sort of have a variety of everybody and things are going on. And again, that's because in class, if you wanted to use it in a high flex format, students who are at a distance can add their own materials directly onto the whiteboard, whereas you as the instructor might act as the pencil for the students in the room and could sort of take their ideas and add to the whiteboard and act as that scribe, if you will, in that situation, right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can play with that and make that work depending on the format that you're in. All right, EdPuzzle. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about EdPuzzle. EdPuzzle is a really fun tool. I know a lot of times we find really great videos that we want to use inside of our courses. I particularly love crash course videos. If you've used crash course videos, then you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, they are very engaging. They're not always geared towards our audience, but it just depends on the type. It depends on the course that you're teaching, the level of the student that you're teaching. It can be really, really good. Those videos can be helpful sometimes to bridge knowledge gaps between where students are and where you would like them to be. So, crash course created by two brothers, John and Hank Green, who basically have been around doing YouTube since the beginning of the internet and YouTube. John Green is a New York Times bestselling author, and his brother Hank Green does a whole lot of different things, but he's done a lot inside of the YouTube space and videos and vlogging and things like that. And so they started what's called Crash Course, which is these sets of videos designed to help students better understand a variety of topics: science, English, history. It started with biology and history, and my kids watch them. Students in schools and colleges all over the country and all over the world use Crash Course. And what's great about Crash Course is it was originally started by John and Hank. They sold that to PBS, to the public broadcasting system, and now, but under the condition that it always and will always remain free. So Crash Course has no cost to it for anyone to access. And so what you can do with those videos or videos that you create, that you've made from your lectures and PowerPoints or other videos that you find on YouTube, right? It's super easy. You can sign up for an EdPuzzle account, and I have links at the end for how to get to that information and make sure that you're signing up in the right place. Make sure you use your Dell Tech email address. That's the big thing. And then when you get here, you can search anything on YouTube. And say, okay, so here's ones. You see, these actually already have questions that have been added. That's what this little teardrop here indicates. It's like, oh, this one has questions with it. Or you can, get down here. So here we have one, doesn't have any questions with it. Oh, it does. There you go. Now the show up, you see, you can add these, or if you would rather, you can always just start fresh. So you can start with a video, add your own questions to it, and kind of go from there. And so that's like, you go out here to YouTube, you say, hey, this is the video that I want. Edit and create your own version. You can trim. So this is super great. Let's say that you have a really long video that you like, but you only like some of it, right? Like you don't like, it's like a 45-minute video and you're like, hey, the middle 10 minutes of this is great, right? And I want to make sure students understand it. Boom. You can just drag these and say, hey, I want to do this and do that. Boom. Boom. Make your cut, then go over here. And as you go through the video, you can say, okay, this is where I want to add a question. Boom, multiple choice question, type in my question text, type in my answer choices, click save, right? It's really that easy. And again, we have resources built around helping you be able to set up and use EdPuzzle. Lots of departments already use it, so we're going to do another quick Zoom poll. Thumbs up if you have used an EdPuzzle before. Laura's got 1 billion thumbs up. I don't even know how you have so many thumbs up, Laura. That's incredible. So if you've never made an EdPuzzle before, it is really very, very simple. And you can then get that information, link it to your course, have it be a grade item, and you could see students and whether or not they're understanding the concept as they're going through the video. So now the question has always been, and I love this question, how do I know my students are watching the video? And if you don't assess the knowledge in the video, the answer is you don't. Even if you assess the knowledge in the video, you don't know if they watched it. Now, if they know all the answers without watching the video, then they probably didn't need to watch the video. And so that's okay. But if you build the questions into the EdPuzzle and it's a grade item associated with those questions, then you can know for a fact that the students watched the video, or at least were present enough to answer the questions when the questions popped up. And so it's one step closer to being like, okay, I know my students are engaging with material. I know my students are coming to class, right? This is, again, another great pre-class activity. I know they're coming with a particular knowledge base. And so we can all move up from that place, wherever that place might be. Maybe everybody did terribly. You're like, okay, we're going to have to start at a baseline here because we need to get to this point. So we need to build up to that, right? Great tool for doing that. And then I believe the last one, or nearly there, Hyperskill. Again, this is one that Jason presented on. I am not going to pretend to be an expert on this. He is definitely the expert on this, but it is a great way if you have 3D simulations, if you have any kind of concepts that deal with understanding how things work in a 3-dimensional space, or maybe it's process oriented or something like that. These can be super, super helpful for helping students work through and develop their understanding of those things. There are pre-made ideas and templates to be able to follow. And again, we have the information that you would need in order to really get an idea of whether or not that's something you want to participate in. Watch Jason's presentation on it on our Lunch and Learn website. Super, super, super informative. And again, it's just another one of those things where, hey, I could give step-by-step directions to my students and hope that they get it in a quote unquote real life situation, or I could create this simulation that takes them through the steps and allows them to really follow that process in a way that's going to stick with them. All right. So this is just a little comparison chart. Now, some of these say like sync versus async, and really and this got messed up because Zoom polling, like, yes, it's definitely a synchronous tool, right? Because we're launching that during the Zoom meeting. So that's good, right? Mentimeter, sync or async, EdPuzzle, async. You could do an EdPuzzle synchronously, but it'd be a little weird. Certainly up to you. You know, you could stop the video mid-class. Again, I don't know that that's the best use of your time necessarily when the EdPuzzle is designed to be done outside, but these are just generally speaking best ways to do things, right? But then when we think about integrating any of these tools, first of all, do not think about integrating all of these tools, okay? That would, no, don't stop, okay? Don't do it. Eventually, maybe, right? You can build yourself towards there, but pick one tool to try each term, maybe, right? And I don't mean each 7-week session, okay? That might do the same tool for both 7 weeks. Try it out in different ways and implement it in different places, right? Make sure that when you're doing it, you're aligning with your outcomes and you have a specific goal in mind, right? You don't want to create or use one of these interactive formative assessments without a purpose, right? Maybe you've seen instances where students constantly struggle with a particular concept. And so you can see, oh, maybe if I use an EdPuzzle, or maybe if I build a Hyperskill simulation, or maybe if I poll immediately following the lecture portion of this and check student understanding, I can get ahead of those issues that I've experienced in the past, right? And then kind of ask the students, obviously, you know, you can even do this the class beforehand because all, you know, different instructors use these tools in different places. And so you can ask your students like, oh, hey, I'm thinking about, thinking about doing a Slido next class or doing some, polling next class during the class. What do you guys think about that? And you might get a collective like, I hate polling. And it's like, okay, well, but why? And so you can find out, well, because, then the teacher actually like makes us pay attention. You're like, well, that's a great reason to hate polling. And so we're going to definitely be doing that. And then the last thing is like, don't just do this and move on, right? Don't get the information from these interactive formative assessments. Be like, oh, hey, nobody understood that. Oh, well, we have to move on. And it's like, students are going to catch on to that whatever they're doing isn't actually having an effect on you and the instruction and making them more successful. Like they'll pick up on those facts. And so it's really important, like take what you learn from these formative assessments and act on them. Act on them in the moment if possible. And then certainly going forward, adjusting your teaching and your strategies to address whatever you're finding with that feedback. All right, we've got a few minutes. Anybody have any additional questions, thoughts, experiences with any of these tools that they want to share, anything like that? Oh man, I know. I'm keeping me from lunchtime, so if you're hungry, I'm hungry. The last thing here is the QR code to get to my link tree, but I will also post it in the chat, so relax. She's Charlene up there with her phone. She's so cool. All right, here's the link tree resource links. So I will get some more. There is some stuff about whiteboards in there, and so the answer to your question, Charlene, might already be in that resource article. If it's not, I'll find the resource article, get the answer posted in there. But if you've never used Linktree, this is my last, look, in closing, here is my last little thing. If you've never used a Linktree before, Linktree is a super great free tool that allows you to add in multiple resources, but under a single link. So, and you can have this be dynamic. You can create different ones for different courses. So if your students are like, well, how do I know the things that I need to find? You're like, well, it's in D2L, or you can go to my link tree and and you can just put your link tree link at the bottom of your email signature or whatever. And then you can have these things so the students can constantly be able to find them. And it's just one link to remember as opposed to multiple links to remember. So Linktree is used a lot by people who monetize in the digital space, people who, you know, content creators and live streamers and all that stuff, they use Linktree because Instagram lets you put one link. And so in order to get around the one link limit in Instagram, they'll use Linktree. But Linktree can obviously be a great solution for us here in education. So just wanted to, if you haven't, maybe you've used a Linktree before, but didn't think about it in terms of what you could do with Linktree, I want to invite you to consider making that part of your toolkit as well for how to maybe be able to share resources out.